Welcome to OverTime the podcast, a show dedicated to all things watches, with a special love for microbrands and their affordable range. I'm your host Praka, and some of you might know me as Kinda Average Watches. Join me as we explore new releases, share tips on building your collection, and put in some overtime with hands-on reviews of the latest watches. Whether you're a bit of a pro or you're just getting into the hobby, this podcast will keep you entertained with great stories from the people in the industry, casual conversations, and guest hosts who bring their own unique perspectives. Let's get started. G'day listeners. Hope you're having a great start to the year. Today we're doing a Q&A episode with questions submitted by our listeners via email, Instagram, and with some sending in some special audio recordings too. I've been meaning to do this episode as a bit of a wrap-up of 2024 and a bit of a segue into 2025. I've been also itching to share some news to all of you, hoping to get it all squared away so that I can reveal it soon. But wrist checked. Today I've got the Heron Mariner Ghost on my wrist, which was kindly sent on loan from Heron Watch Co. over at Montreal, Canada. A super interesting dial on a rock solid 39mm dive watch. Definitely has some influences from the Blancpain Bathyscaphe, especially the awesome bezel, but its own unique way. The hardness coating on the case and the bracelet is awesome. This has been all around the world. It still looks like it's barely been handled by anyone. Looks great. Thanks again, Heron. Look, check him out. I'll leave a link to the show notes and my own micro review of the watch that I made on Instagram Reels. All right, without further ado, let's get into the episode. Q&A. First question. First question comes from avid listener, and it says, so amongst the 2024 releases, in your opinion, what do you think is the best value microbrand slash independent release of the year? If you can you tell me one that's less than $1,000 and one that is more than $2,000, and maybe any special mentions? Cool. So I think I'll start off with the under $1,000. So thanks for the question. Really appreciate it. Great question. So under $1,000, I think it has to be, and I said 1,000 Australian dollars, it has to be the Erebus Ascent. So I've recently had a chance to handle it. I was already impressed by the specs of it, right? It literally is a spec monster. Jody's not, if we know Jody, we know that he loves watches that has good value, great specs, and looks good. And he's done it all, of course, for his own watch. They've created something absolutely. It takes all the elements of a great dressy styled watch, a Garter, if you may, very reminiscent of the Saab range, and just also pulls inspirations from various other Garter style watches, and it just does it so well. So I had the chance to try on the Aventurine, and it's a stunning dial. Of course, Aventurine dials are stunning as it is, but this was just done really well. And of course, the indices, polished and cut just in the right way to reflect light and also give it that real dressy look. And of course, on the Jubilee, it looked $1,000,000. You're doing the wrist roll in the sun with the bracelet and that Aventurine dial sparkling back to you. It was, yeah, it's stunning to say the least. And it's also, of course, can't forget about the lume. Lume is also great. It's not a dive watch, but it's still got enough lume and it looks good. Pretty sure it's the BGW9, the nice blue glow. It's very nice, very nice. And of course, it's got all the different diamond colors. You got yellow, you got orange fume, you've got malachite dial, you've got the helix dials, you've got blue, green, and then you've got purple. Of course, you've got the Aventurine, you've got the black enamel. So you've got your choices of all the different colors you want. It's got date window, quick adjust, and the bracelet. Look, it's got all the specs you want, and under $1,000. Like, if you had a budget and you're like, okay, I've got $1,000 and this is the only watch I want, a watch that I can wear all the time and I can do anything with it, this is the watch I would recommend. You can, it has a 100-meter water resistance, so you can still go into the water, and it's a screw down crown as well. I think maybe it's not a screw down crown. I'll take that back, but it definitely has a 100-meter water resistance, which is plenty. You can take it on a swim, and you can switch out the straps easily as well. Chuck on a rubber strap, and I'm pretty sure Jody Erebus sells strap packs, or sometimes even comes with it. So yeah, it's literally the perfect Garda watch under 1,000 Australian dollars. And of course, you're supporting someone that is huge in this space, as in someone that's a champion of this space. And I think it's money well spent. So that would be my pick. For my above $1,000 pick, I got to go with the Formex Reef 39 mil or 39 and a half mil Bahama Blue. It's a stunner, first of all. It's such a summery watch. I didn't just pick it because it's summer in Australia, but it definitely is perfect for it right now. But it's a spec monster, right? It's got your COS certified chronometer grade movement. It's a Leader 300 series, which is great. It's a great movement. I've had great experience with it. 56-hour power reserve, of course, and that's just the movement. The watch itself is a stunner. The dial, the blue, the dial, amazing. The compact case as well. It's compact yet it's got enough presence. It's all sort of got that wings on the side, which is a bit, I know, Nautilus-esque, but it definitely makes it its own. The Formex cases and bracelets and everything else is engineered and machined and finished to the T. Like, I don't know how I want to say it, but I feel like Formex's engineering is definitely like a step ahead. The bracelet wears and drapes so beautifully, and it's done in a, I wouldn't say in an elegant way, but it's done in such a precise, machined, engineered way. And you have to handle a Formex to really see what I'm talking about. And of course, it comes with the micro adjust, and it comes with, in either a leather, rubber, or bracelet. And the cool thing about all these things, and even the leather bracelet and the rubber, it comes with like a little micro adjust on there, which is really cool. So, if you wanted that micro adjust on the fly, you can do it in clasp, and it's fantastic. And it is a really good micro adjust system on there as well in the Formex compared to some of the other cheaper brands that I've dealt with, the micro adjust system. And it's quick release, etc. So you can, if you're going to get one watch, you can have it dressy with a bracelet. You can have it, you can go straight into the beach with the rubber, or you can switch it up to the leather to make it a bit more classier. Of course, it stands out with the blue dial, but hey, still pretty classy. If anything's more classy, if you'd rather wear this than an Apple Watch with a suit, that's for sure. And of course, it's stainless, but it's got this grade 2 titanium on the inside as well, which obviously makes it a little bit lighter in that sense. And the lacquer dial is just stunning. It's got a nice sort of mirror polish finish, and you got the faceted indices with, it's got vertical brushing, mirror polish, so it gives that nice shine as well in the sun. And then date match, so color match date wheel as well. And I just think it looks great. And yeah, it's 39 and a half mil as well. So unlike the original Reef, which is a bit bigger, 42 mil, it's just that it wears really well in terms of the diameter, 39 and a half mil. It's got a nice 45.5 lug to lug. It is 22 mil lug width, which you'd think it's a little bit weird for the size of the watch, but I think for the form factor of the Reef, because you have those wings on the left and the right, it definitely looks more proportional. And it's only 11 mil thick, which is awesome. And that's what the Salida 300 is. It's a fairly thin movement, I guess, and yeah, and it works really well. So that would be my pick. It's yes, it's above 1,000 AUD. It starts at 1790 euro. So yes, it's on the higher end of what we normally speak about, but I think it's definitely, well, I would say it's probably one of the best value microbrand release in that sort of higher category this year. Okay, so and I guess we'll wrap that question up with a special mention. I loved this when I first saw this, and we spoke about this in definitely in previous episodes. It's the Otsuka Low-Tech number 6, which is a retrograde watch with a steampunk industrial look. Look, you're not really going to be finding good luck trying to buy one of these things. But in saying that, like I said, it is unique. It is unattainable, very hard to get outside of Japan. I just thought it was really cool to see an independent Japanese watchmaker do something like this, which is a bit different. And I'm pretty sure the rest of the world agreed. It definitely won some awards as well. But yeah, definitely a cool watch. But yeah, check it out, listeners. Of course, as always, all the links will be linked in the show notes so you can go through and whatever I've spoken about today, I would have links to them as well. Okay, awesome. Thanks for that question. All right, let's move on to the next question. So this one also came from Instagram Anonymous. So you do focus a lot on microbrands and the affordable side. Yes, correct. We do. But what is your favorite major brand release of 2024? Okay. All right. I have a couple of major brand releases this year. I'll start off with one that most recently had hands-on with, which is the Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch Professional in the white dial. For me, it's basically everything that's great about the new Speedy Moonwatch Pro, but it's white. And really, what's not to like, you know? The lacquer white dial is awesome. In person, it just, yeah, it's white, but that lacquer just makes it that much better. It stands out, but also it's got the classic speedy proportions, like magic with the twisted lugs and how well it wears. Yes, it's a 42 mil case, but it wears so well. I mean, I have small wrists, wears well. People with big wrists, wears well. It's just one of those magic cases. It kind of reminds me of Seiko's case magic with their lug to lug, but because of obviously this iconic speedy case with the lugs, it just, yeah, it wears so well. You know, I have also seen stuff like, there's been other Speedmasters with white dials. There's been the Alaska project. There's been the Speedy Reduced, the Marui Japanese edition, which I at one point was spending a lot of time searching that up on Chrono 24 and other places. But I don't know, this just feels different. It just feels like a refined addition to the classic Speedmaster Professional case and design, but with the same 3861 movement that's in the latest ones, the case and the new bracelet, which is fantastic, by the way. Like I would say the older Speedy bracelets, I wasn't really a big fan of, but these new bracelets are great. They look really polished, even though I think the Hesalite version, which on the black dial is not polished, it's all brushed and then, yeah, but it definitely looks great. The new clasp is awesome as well, has the micro adjust, etc. It basically has the same feel of the new Speedy Pro, but in white. And I think that was enough to go, yep, this is definitely one of my top releases from a major brand. Of course, the retail price doesn't spark me with joy, but who knows? Maybe in a few years, this might be a bit more palatable in the secondary market, but we'll see. Okay. So moving on from Omega, the next one is, of course, had to put one in here, and it is the Grand Seiko. So Seiko, Grand Seiko, of course, everyone knows. If you've listened to the podcast previously, you know my love for this brand and both the Seiko group and Grand Seiko. So talking about the SLGW005, which is the recreation of the original 45GS with the double sign logo. Look, this is like a proper recreation of a really historically important Grand Seiko, which was released in 1968. So this is everything I love about Seiko and Grand Seiko. It follows the grammar of design by Taro Tanaka, who is famous for creating the Seiko grammar of design. I'll link a note in there so you guys can go into, listeners, you can check it out in detail about grammar of design. I have also spoken about it in the past. I won't go into too much detail, but basically, even my vintage Lord's Seiko Lord Matic from the 1960s as well, which costs way less, still follows the same design principle. And it's amazing to see that, that sort of continuity in design, which was set up all that time ago. So this current model is upscaled from the previously smaller model, I think, which is about 36 mil. You're looking at about almost 39 mil, 38.8. Of course, it opens that up to, of course, people with various wrist sizes to be able to wear it. the design language is, like I say, it's so clear. You know, you've got the sharp angles on the case, you've got the handset, the indices, the mirror polish, the angles, the facets, the high polish where it needs to be, and of course the crystal as well. It just gives it that nice distortion. I think this one's sapphire, of course, unlike the original. This is, look, for me, this is pure Grand Seiko. I which I'll get to in another question later on. But basically, it's everything that I think embodies Grand Seiko. Of course, this one though also comes with a new movement, the 9SA4 movement, which is a manual high beat movement. It's finished awesome, awesome finish on it. And it comes with this new manual winding system. I think it's called like a bird. I'm not really sure what it's called, but yeah, check it out. Watch some videos on it. It looks really cool. And it's very accurate as well. It comes with 80-hour power reserve. Yeah, I think that's definitely up there for my major brand releases of 2024. And the last one to round it out, but definitely not the least, is the two-door Black Bay 58 GMT. I think this is something that a lot of Black Bay fans have been asking for, like a 58 case with a GMT movement. There was the two-door Black Bay Pro, which was released, which is the last released GMT in that sort of Black Bay family, but I think it drew a lot of criticism because of the thickness of the watch. I've seen it and it is thick. I don't think it's as thick as what people make it out to be in person, but it definitely is quite sizable. It stands out. There's no hugging of the wrist going on there. So this one, when it came out, it almost felt like a natural step. Tudor were going to release it, and they did. It's like 1.8 mil thinner than the BlackBerry Pro, I think, and also has the 39 mil case of the BlackBerry 58. But it also just has enough wrist presence, I think, that most people can wear this watch comfortably. Of course, it comes with the T-Fit micro adjust on the bracelet. It's got the 58's vintage style riveted bracelet, which I think can be a bit polarizing. Some people like it, some people don't. I think it's great. I think it fits the design perfectly. It's vintage inspired GMT. It's calling on the old GMT master, the old Rolex references, of course, all that design, even the old Tudors just all in this. So I think it fits really well. Of course, the colors, the gold accents, the black and red, the Coke bezel, it's all classic GMT, which is great. Of course, for the all the movement nerds out there, it has the METAS certified movement, which is above and beyond the COS certification. So, yeah, I think this was a safe yet great release, and definitely would put it up there as one of my favorite major brand releases 2024. Cool. Thanks for that question. That was great. Okay. I will move on to the next question. All right, for this question, we will listen to this clip.
Hey Praka mate, it's Seb here, your most favorite French Canadian. I have a question for you. We're both dress watches enthusiasts and the category evolved nicely over the past few years. We've seen shaped case, unusual colors, and new diode materials. What do you think might come next in this category? Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Seb. That's an awesome question. And yes, you are indeed my favorite French Canadian. Appreciate you sending me this question in. Thank you for all your support and listening to our podcast. Yeah, it really means a lot. Okay, so dress watch category. Look, I think you're correct. Definitely seen some great innovation in this category recently. Looking at the Burneron Mirage, which is for me, is like definitely pushing the boundaries. I mean, we're talking about bespoke movement for and the case. Everything's built around this gorgeous design. Of course, yeah, I think it's amazing. I don't think, of course, that is going to translate necessarily directly into the more affordable side. But I think my guess in 2025, we'll definitely see more brands looking to get into this different case shapes, but probably sticking with circular movements or more traditional off-shelf movements, of course, not bespoke manufactured movements. I also think that we'll continue to see strong use of stone dials and other exotic dial materials. I feel like microbrands have been doing this for a little while now. Zelos really comes to mind. It's one of the sort of older microbrands that have been doing this, but plenty of microbrands have been doing this now. I mean, you've got Baltic, we even talked about Erebus before, you've got Signum, Labradites, you've got so many different brands using stone dials and more unique dials materials. But I think yeah, I feel like it's also moving back into the more traditional brands. I mean, big brands, big mainstream brands have used this kind of dials in the past. I mean, you're looking at Cartier have used that. Even, even Rolex have done all this before, Patek, all those things. But it's sort of and even other brands like, of course, Seiko and Citizen, they've all used this stuff in the past. But I think it's coming back. I mean, I've seen the Bulova Super Seville. I think they had a collaboration with Complecto. It definitely looks to me that it's going to come back in 2025 a bit more stronger. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I also think, just to add, this might be a year that brands who have not yet released dress watches or not really known for dress pieces will sort of start venturing into it. I'm of course looking into Eco Neutra, which we've spoken about a couple of episodes ago, and who previous to this latest model, the Rivenera, they they haven't released a dress watch. It was very much divers and garter style watches. And to be honest, when it first dropped, I was like, "What brand is this? I don't even know this." And to have that association with Eco Nitro just didn't make sense. But I think that's cool. I think it's nice to see brands who are not traditionally known for dress pieces or brands that haven't done it yet venture into it. I think it's cool to see their take on it, and I think Echo Neutra did really well. It's a titanium, of course, tank style watch, but they made it their own. And Serica dropped the parade style watch, which is of course the parade. I think Serica Parade, which is the stadium sort of case, which is something that has been done in the past by various brands. Like I think Cartier has done it, Nevada have done it as well in the 70s. But but what hasn't been done is, I guess, the brand's design language together with that dress style. So, I mean, for example, Serica could have released a parade or stadium dial, a stadium case, but with that like a standard stadium case, whatever that may be. But they did it with their version of flair. They've done it with their style, which is their bezel. So that bezel was so distinctive. Initially, it kind of throws you off. You go, oh, it's a bit thicker than what I would like in a dress piece. But then you look at it and go, well, you know what? That's very uniquely Serica. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, obviously check out the link, listeners, and see what I'm saying in terms of and compare it to the 4512 or their field watches and have a look at the brush bezel design on their field watches and the brush bezel design on this parade. It's there. The design language is clear. So I think 2025, I feel like some more brands are going to venture into this side more, get into that dressier side, but also make it their own. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what is going to come out in the dress watch space. And of course, we will definitely continue our chats about dress watches as we always do, Seb. I always appreciate that. And yeah, thank you very much for the question. Cheers. All right. We'll move on to the next question. So this is also from Instagram. This is from Dang Horology, who contributed to our previous Q&As in the past. So really appreciate that. So the question is, do you usually dress your outfit around your watch, or do you put your outfit on first and then decide what watch to wear? Oh, great question. I think generally speaking, I tend to choose the watch that's sort of more appropriate for the activity or the location where I'm heading to. So if I'm heading to the office, for example, for my day job, I tend to wear more of my dressy pieces because it suits the location. And of course, it coincidentally matches my clothes for the day. So, of course, I'll wear something on a leather strap and something slightly a bit more dressier. And that's because I'm going to the office. I and it just works. But so that's sort of my thinking behind how I would pick my watch for what I'm doing. Same thing with going to the beach. I'd be wearing my diver or my G-Shock, but majority of times I'll be wearing my diver on a rubber strap because I know I'm going in the water. because I know I'm going to be in the sand with the kids and enjoying it. And I'm in there swimming, I'm doing stuff. It's, I want to not worry about it. So I'll make sure that my watch is appropriate for the activity or what I'm doing. But I guess the one exception is that I do love swapping straps, as you know, as, and bracelets, etc. So I do tend to avoid big clash in color schemes, I guess. But that's, I guess, sort of almost is a more subconscious choice than a conscious choice. But yeah, that's how I pick, I guess, how I dress, either the watch first, the outfit first. But yeah, it's definitely more based around location, where I'm going, what I'm doing. Yeah, so awesome. Thanks for the question, mate. All right, moving to the next question. We'll listen in from Paul from Melbourne.
Hey Praka, given that it's been a while that you've been in the podcast, curious to know if you find the microbrand space more appealing in the affordable range than some of the more well-known brands like Seiko or Citizen. Do you tend to find yourself looking at more microbrands these days than you do the regular suspects?
Thank you so much for the question, Paul. Really appreciate your support. All right, now, I think the answer is yes, I definitely do. I still keep an eyes on Seiko releases as it definitely is my sort of soft spot, as I've mentioned previously many times. But Seiko, as they're moving up market in RRP, I guess the affordable range of my focus is going around more in the micro brands. There's just so many micro brands popping up nowadays, and they're really pushing design. They're not afraid to take stuff from the past where I guess it was a bit stranger, a bit more unique. And the dial materials, the case material, they're trying different things. Right? I've already spoke a couple of questions ago about people like Eco Nutra, like Serica, even looking at hand finished artisan work from, you know, all these guys doing enamel dials and Grand Few enamel and lacquer dials and hand finished stuff out of Asia, and it's Asia and Europe. It's incredible. You can get some really well made stuff nowadays for not a lot of money. It's really hard to ignore the noise, to be honest. You don't even have to look at yeah. So look, going to, I guess, a bit of a tangent, for me, I personally hope that this pushes the traditionally affordable brands like Seiko and Citizen to really up their game, bring back some of the more unique models in their past as proper reissues. Spoke about previously the Grand Seiko, the SLG W005. That was a proper recreation. Obviously, that's a different level. It's a different brand. It's Grand Seiko, but the same umbrella Seiko group. I would love to see, like what they did with the Seiko 5 Sports 55th anniversary reissue, where they kept it identical essentially from the past, or at least they tastefully did it like that. And unlike the Pogue reissue, to frankly speaking, was a bit of a mockery. They just used the same color scheme, but they chucked it on the speed timer range, which it was disappointing to say the least. Like, you had some, if for me, I think personally, if Seiko re-released the 6138s or the 6139 chronographs, it would sell like hotcakes. It would be such a home run, and I would definitely be buying one for sure. Like you're talking about these fantastic designs that they had in the past, great, beautiful proportions, and the movements as well were really good movements. Till this day stand the test of time. I just think, why not? Why would you? I mean, since you guys are moving higher into the, RRPs going up and up, why not start releasing these models? Because then I think there's a bit more justification to the price increases, and then the gap of where the old Seiko 5s used to be will be taken over by, I mean, Citizen as well. Citizen has a sort of a big range, but Citizen, obviously the upmarket stuff is there, but all these micro brands that are popping up can take that space. But I think in general, watch prices, especially for micro brands, are going to go up. That's just how it is with the world these days. Everything's more expensive. There are the homage brands that are sort of taking that space a little bit as well. I think there can be tasteful ones and sort of not so tasteful proper copies as well. But it all depends on your, you know, what floats your boat, really. If you're happy to get into that space, then yes, then at least you can look into that. But for me personally, I definitely look at the micro brands in that affordable range. Thanks for the question, Paul. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to the next question then. This is also a submitted question. Let's head to the clip.
Hey Praker, James here from the Watching James YouTube channel. Recently I asked you a rather difficult question, and that is, what is the most important watch in your collection and why? And since asking you that question, I've thought up a couple of other questions I'd like to ask you. I quite like the idea of heritage of watches, brands and history, and I like learning about it. But when it actually comes to buying a watch, heritage doesn't really factor into my buying decision. For you, Praker, does heritage, brand, or the history of a brand factor into your purchasing decisions?
Thank you so much, James. Really appreciate your support. And thank you, firstly, before we get into the answer, really appreciate you having me on your channel. Your wrap-up video for the year, that was amazing. Certainly didn't expect to be part of it, and I really appreciate your support. And I really appreciate your questions. So let's get into this question. So yes, I do love reading into brand history and heritage, especially to see the inspirations from the past and how it's being used now in the present. I think, like, however much like you, I don't actually think it plays a big role in my actual purchasing. It's more just the research around it. My collection, as you know, is pretty evenly split between traditionally bigger brands and micro brands, and I think that's sort of always going to be the case. I love both spaces. Obviously my passion is in the micro brand and the affordable range, but I can still appreciate the bigger brands as well, of course. And I must say that when I'm looking at newer brands, so whether that be micros or independents, if I'm not too familiar with the brand, I always try and make sure I can find more details in the watch, of course, whether that be through YouTube videos like yourself, of course, or places like Watch Crunch, Reddit, etc. And of course, the bigger sort of blogs and spaces. But if it's fairly new, very new brand, especially small micro brand, you don't really find a lot of information there. So I guess one last point to that question, if it is like super new and obscure and I do like it, whether I buy it or not, I think the price point really plays a big role. If it's a significant chunk of change and I truly don't really feel like it's going to be a keeper in my collection, then I would probably not, I probably wouldn't take the gamble because if I know that I'm not going to hold on to for a long time, and if it is a very obscure and new brand, I don't want to eventually take a big loss in the future. But in saying that, if it's a fairly new and obscure brand, but I like the watch and I go, you know what, this is going to be in my collection, then I wouldn't mind taking the hit and I'd keep it. But yeah, the price point would definitely play a big role there. Okay, let's move on to the next question then.
Since starting this watch collecting sort of hobby, I think my idea of what my Grail watch has really changed. I sort of almost call it my evolution of my Grail watch, starting off with an Omega and now working all the way through to the watch that I want now is a Grand Seiko. When you think about the sort of watches that you've been thinking about over the years since you started collecting, has there been an evolution or a change of that sort of ultimate watch from your start of your watch collecting journey towards today?
Okay, great question. Yeah, I had to think about this one since you submitted it, and I think yes, definitely has evolved. So I think over time, I've really started to appreciate more of the dressier pieces, and like my mini grail and my mini grails and my grail, which I spoke about in the previous Q&A episode last year, which was the Kikuchi Nakagawa. They're both more and more in the dressier side now than the diver side. Like when I first started, it was very much in that diver sort of vintage look space and also garter space, whereas now it's more become a bit more on the dressier side. Still got divers and garters, but definitely my taste is more involved. I mean, I guess with looking at my 2024 acquisitions, my Grand Seiko, which is very dressy. Also my Nomos, of course, my Nomos 703.1, which again, it's not so dressy that it's not robust. It's still robust enough for daily wear, unlike some vintage pieces, but yes, it definitely is more dressier. I guess another thing I'm also noticing is a big shift from colors to more monochromatic, where colors still do appeal to me. And, for the most of today, I was wearing my purple Duranzo DRZ04, but I'm probably a bit more wary of purchasing bolder colors as my wear time on those pieces are definitely becoming lower than the monotone counterparts. Doesn't mean I like boring dials, but I still enjoy a great dial. But I think just the color in general, I think I'm liking a bit more subtlety as a daily wear, but keeping the colors for more special times. And another thing I've noticed, or I guess an evolution, is my taste in movements. I think this is similar to a lot of people who start off initially as a beginner very anti-quartz. Once you first start watching the first couple of watch YouTube videos or reading the blogs, you're very much like, oh, you know what, I don't, it's mechanical all the way, screw quartz, and quartz is not for enthusiasts. But I definitely changed my ways. Really embraced the high accuracy quartz movements, mecha quartz, and quartz movements in general. I mean, there's definitely room in the collection for them. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I have at least 4 or 5 quartz watches in my collection. Four, yeah, probably four. Whether that's between hack, mecha quartz, and quartz, and that's not including the G-Shocks, of course. I definitely think there's a big room for them. But of course, I still love my beautiful mechanical movements. There's just something about staring at a movement, but I think I'm a bit more open to it now. So, I'm looking at I say it as I'm staring at my Alpha, the display case back on the Alpha movement of the Nomos Club, and it's beautiful. So I do see myself in the future going deeper into more nicer and nicer movements as my journey continues in the future, but not in the immediate future. Of course, those kind of nicer movements do obviously push up into the categories. So maybe not anytime soon, but hey, I still appreciate I said I'm definitely appreciating my quartz pieces as well. So yeah, I think that's how my evolution has happened. I'm sort of in between sometimes. I'm definitely enjoying the quartz, and I'm also enjoying the beautiful movements. Thanks for the question, James. Yeah, awesome questions, and really appreciate your support on this podcast. Cheers. Okay, now we'll move on to another question from Instagram from Time Unwinding. Shout out to Time Unwinding. Thank you so much. Great questions. Question is, in your experience, how do you build a connection that reflects your personal style rather than just following trends? Okay. When I first looked at this question, I was like, oh, this is a hard one. Definitely, I think for me, the best way is to build a collection that will eventually reflect your personal style is to start low. Buy and sell watches until you find your groove, and then you start settling in on the types of watches that suits you. That's kind of what I've done in my journey. I have bought many watches. I have also sold many watches to fund other watch purchases and so on and so forth. What that's done over the time is allowed me to try out different styles, different types of watches, different colors, different shapes, different sizes, you name it. But that has helped me to shape what I think is my style, and it's worked really well. Another way, of course, is to tailor it to your lifestyle. If you're an outdoorsy type person who loves the beach and hiking and stuff like that, you want something more robust. You want divers. You want something that's not going to break on you. So then what you might do is you go, that's my style. That's my lifestyle. So I should start divers, get into it with the divers, and then slowly start dabbling in the other styles and see if they interest you as well. Because, you're not going to be in the beach 24/7. You could be, but you're not going to be in the beach 24/7. You've definitely got some room to have different styled pieces at different times of the day. And I think that's how you sort of, get to it. And that's what I would say in my experience. Last part of the question with regards to trends. Look, there's only so many ways to see, watch, and read about, watches, and I think the majority of watch enthusiasts and beginners alike, you'll be around the YouTube and Instagram spaces. Yes, Watch Crunch is there as well, which is still a growing platform. There's Reddit and stuff, of course, but YouTube and Instagram is still probably the biggest. It's hard not to get influence, to be honest. There's so many great people on Instagram taking them beautiful shots and videos of watches, and you're like, wow, that's awesome. Of all the new releases, which seem to happen all the time, whether that be the major brands or the micro brands, I think you can get carried away. You can look at it and you go, oh, I need this. This is amazing. I need this. Amazing. Just word of warning, sometimes it may look amazing in these photos done by someone as professional, or someone's taking great photographs. Doesn't have to be professional, but once you get it in person, you go, oh, okay, maybe this doesn't look as great as what it did in the photos. So that's one thing. And two as well, I think just have that little reminder in your head about your lifestyle, your personal style that we just spoke about, and that just might be enough to not get too much into that FOMO, that fear of missing out. Like, oh, I'm going to miss out on this piece. This is a limited edition 50 piece of this colorway from this brand, and oh, I really like the look of it. I need to jump on it. That said, I've fell to FOMO before as well, but it's a learning journey, it's a learning process. But I think, you know, there's so many watches out there, so many watch brands out there, so many models out there. If you miss out on one, you'll get another one. Sometimes you'll get pick it up in the secondary market later on. So don't feel the need that you are gonna miss out and that you have to get it. And yeah, I mean that's my 2 cents with regards to, I guess, more of the micro brand and the affordable side. Of course, if we're looking at sort of major brands, we're talking about 80s and that alike. Similar point applies. You will get influenced by photos and stuff you see on Instagram and YouTube, and it's easy to get carried away. But I think in that space, if you have access to 80s, go try it on, see how it looks on your wrists, and how you feel. Do you think this is a watch for me? Just because everyone is saying the 2.50, Black Bear 58 GMT is the bee's knees, might not be the bee's knees for you. Got to try it out. So anyway, I hope that helps. But yeah, thanks. That was a rather hard question, I think. But yeah, hope that helps. All right. So this one is a joint question. So we had two avid listeners. Also, that shout out to Time Unwinding again and Eddie Day Carey. Appreciate support as always. They've asked a question, pretty much the same question, which is, have you regretted selling a watch? Which one and why? Those who know me, they know that I tend to keep like a core keeper collection, I guess. I tend to have like this is my core keepers. And then everything else, my collection's pretty fluid. As I said before, I buy and sell watches to experience them. And then when I'm done or bored, or if I see something else that I want to get and I don't have unlimited funds, I have to sell stuff to buy stuff. That's just how it is. I will sell stuff and move it on, and then I'll pick something else up. That said, have I regretted selling a watch? Yes, I have. I say I regret selling two watches. First one is my Oris Diver 65 Glow. So the Oris was great. It was a thin, well profiled skin diver, had brand heritage, had a unique dial as well, Fume glowing dial. It was unlike any other dive watch that I had in my collection or had experienced. It was, vintage inspired. The bracelet was amazing. It was like the insane taper, going from 20 down to 14 or something. It was just, it wore really well. It wore like a really vintage watch, but also with the modern, of course, the robustness. But eventually I had a lot of divers in my collection, and I sort of had to make a decision. I wanted to fund my Grand Seiko purchase, so I moved it on. And yeah, I do regret selling that. It wore really well. It was unique, but I think like Jody has said many a times, if anyone has seen his videos about Oris Diver 65. Seems to always go in and out of his collection. I think he's bought five or six in the past, so I definitely think it's one of those ones that will come back into my collection in the future. Maybe not the glow dial, but the one of the different variants for sure. And my other watch I regret was for a sale. It's for a different reason. This one wasn't so much because of, I guess, how it wore or how, what the bracelet and everything else, but it's more the, I guess, more uniqueness and the chances of me finding one that's the same. So it was a Seiko King Quartz in a TV styled case with an integrated bracelet and it had this fine H link and it tapered really well as well. So I could probably find another one very similar to this, the same reference, probably definitely out there. But I guess what made this really unique was it had this really nice UV patina color on the dial, which basically made it almost salmon. So it was patinaed, but not way too much. Like I think in my experiences so far, it's hard to find a dial from that era from Seiko from the 70s with enough patina without it being too much. So there's a lot of dials that are actually really getting really great nick, but then there's some that just have way too much patina. This was like a real nice sweet spot. At that point in time, I sold it to fund another purchase, but looking back at it, I probably would have kept that in my collection. It was vintage, it was quartz, it was Seiko. It had so much going on, which resonates with me, but I'll let it go. So anyway, I hope the owner is still enjoying it and keeps enjoying it for a long time. That's that. So yeah, thanks for that question. It's a good one. Makes me feel a bit sad, but it was a good one. Okay, so next question is from Eddie Day Carey, who asked me, what was your most worn watches in 2024? Okay, so good timing. I actually put up a top six of 2024 watches that I've worn, which I think, can't remember who it was who started on Instagram. I think it was, yeah, I'm not sure about the person who did, but anyway, there's a hashtag going on about top six in watches of 2024, and I decided, since I've been tracking my wear stats on Wrist Track app, which is a really cool app, I will leave the link to the show notes. I guess a little bit of a caveat is that I have not tracked for the first 6 months. I only started tracking for the latter half of the year, so June onwards, or just over, I think it's, yeah. So very first, right at the top, was my Grand Seiko SPGX 261. 16.4% of the my wares went to that. I wasn't really surprised at all that it would be in my top six, but I guess I was a little bit surprised that it was as high as it was because I do try and rotate through my collection quite often, but it's cool. Definitely can see why it's my top watch. I love wearing it. There's so much about it that I love. It's about proportions are great. It's black, it's monochrome, and it's got all the everything I like about Grand Seiko and Seiko in this watch. Second one is my Helios C4th version 4 second with a 10% of the wear. Again, it's a dive watch, it's classic. Love the black lacquer dial. It wears so well as well in my wrist, even though it's a bigger watch. I love wearing it on the Jubilee bracelet from Uncle Seiko. Great watch. I am looking forward to buying or maybe we'll see, but looking forward to potentially getting the Helios bracelet made for the C4th, which looks pretty cool as well. Number three was the Astron Banks Fortitude Light Polar with also 10% or just under the C4th in second. Again, it's a beautiful white polar dial, the Garda, 200-meter water resistance. I pretty much did everything and anything with it. Brought it into the pool, wore it to the office. I've done everything with it. I love it, of course. Fourth was the Serica 4512 California dial with 9.2%. So this one was, I think this surprised me a little bit. Again, I got this in 2024 as well. And initially I had some issues with it. I had some movement issues with it. I think I might have spoken about it in podcast previously. But since I got that repaired, it's been awesome. It's again, a clean watch, easy to wear, and Also just unique enough with the California dial. And again, like an awesome Garter watch to have. At number five, this surprised me, was my latest acquisition, the Nomos 703.1 Club at 7% or 7.1%. I couldn't believe it, to be honest, how high it was, but I also can believe it because I wore it straight for a long time. Almost had to pry it off to wear something else. But I did enjoy, definitely do, I definitely am enjoying it, especially on the latest artisan straps, the on the kudu leather, which is fantastic, by the way. Check it out. Yeah, really enjoying it on that. And then rounded it off with another Grand Seiko, but this was very close to my seventh place, which is I think like 0.1% difference, which was my SPB 143 Seiko. So the Grand Seiko SPGX 209, which is the ivory dial, 36 mil, bit dressy, and yeah, definitely loved wearing that as well. So yeah, those were my most worn watches in 2024. And yes, I will leave a link for wrist track in there. Okay, there we go. We have finally arrived in the final question of the Q&A. This one is from a legend from AWL. Morgan, you know who you are from AWL. Really appreciate questions and yeah, appreciate support, of course, for the podcast. So I will go ahead and play the clip.
G'day, legends. Thanks for the opportunity to ask a couple of questions here. The one I'm kind of interested in at the moment is about trends in the micro brand community. And I've kind of been noticing that, obviously there's a current trend among micro brand watch companies to favour, the more affordable Japanese automatic movements like the, ubiquitous Seiko NH35 and Miyota 9015. Just as a couple of examples. I'm curious about the potential for high accuracy quartz movements in this space. Do you guys think there's room for more micro brands to adopt hack movements and to leverage their reliability, precision, and the ability to create slimmer profile cases? What advantages and challenges do you think they might face if they try to go down that path? Thanks, guys. Again, appreciate all that you do. It's awesome listening to your podcast and all the knowledge that you guys can share. Cheers.
Thanks, mate. Great question. Thank you. All right. So, look, to put it simply, I think yes, there definitely is a big untapped market for quartz, hack, and mecha quartz movements to be in the microbrand space. Like, of course, one brand I have to mention is HZ Watches. I've had Matt on the podcast previously, once but twice, and he's proud to, show that he's got quartz movements in his watches. It's in the brand name, it's in the marketing, it's everything. In fact, HZ02, the Mecha Quartz chronograph, has a display case back to show off that robust VK Mecha Quartz movement. Sure, it's not this beautifully finished, with all this Geneva stripings and all that, but it's cool. I think it's different. Who has a display case back of a Mecha Quartz movement? Not many people. I think it's cool. I think it's good that he's embracing it, and I think as enthusiasts, it's easy to sort of go down that path of, I'll only wear mechanical pieces. And I myself, as I've described from the previous question from James, I'm a bit guilty of this. I think there's a big portion of people that who maybe not necessarily won't admit it, but it sometimes it's just easy to grab and go in a quartz watch. Go in, look at it, go bang, pick it up, chuck it in wrist and go. Than having to set it every day. I personally don't mind when I'm doing it. If I'm going to work or something where I have a bit of a commute, it's become sort of a ritual, but sometimes I don't have that time or whatever. I just want to pick it up and go. And I think quartz watches are obviously perfect for that, especially when you got these high accuracy quartzes and, you're still getting that refinement, you're still getting that sort of the nicer spect movements for the price. And yeah, it's a great watch. And I think especially if your collection is on the larger side and sometimes you only wear your mechanical watches now and then, you're going to have to set it every day. And also, I think there's obviously the pluses. Like, it can be thinner. The watch can be thinner. It could potentially be more cost effective because you're not spending the movement on the sort of money on the more expensive movements. So in saying that, quartz movements can be expensive too. It all depends on the levels, but generally speaking, your mechanical or automatic movements will cost more. And also, I feel like that cost and that thinness, you can go into the materials of the case of the bracelet or the more R&D. You can go into the dials. I feel like the money can be spent on other areas of a watch as opposed to the movements, and it doesn't necessarily detract from that. I think there's definitely a big space in pushing that and saying, hey, look, it doesn't, the movement is great, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean that a quartz watch means that it's inferior. It can still have really solid build quality in every other aspect, including the movement, solid movement, very robust movements, but it doesn't have to be mechanical. I think it sort of also, potentially opens up a lot of creativity in the space, as going back to HZ watches. And of course, you've got your high accuracy quartz stuff as well. Your Grand Seikos and your Citizens already do that. It'd be interesting to see how microbrands take on that sort of space, because you can have elevated brands, elevated, more independent brands who might want to start using hack movements instead of manual movements and automatic movements. I would love to see how they, finish quartz movements as well, to show that and display case back. Anyway, there's a lot of space there. I think there's a lot of room for creativity. So great question. So that are my 2 cents anyway. Thanks, Morgan. And that's it. We have come to the end of the Q&A. This rounds out 2024. Now, we'll caveat it by saying that I hope that I release this episode by the end of this year. Otherwise, it may come out in early 2025. But either way, this was meant to be the episode that wrapped up the year. So again, thank you so much to everyone that has contributed to the Q&A and everyone that has supported this podcast, supported myself and Justin throughout this journey. It means so much to me. A really great year, and I'm hoping that 2025 just brings bigger and better things. And I can't wait for all you listeners to join me in that journey. We've got some, like I said in the start, we've got some really cool stuff lined up. I'm so excited for it already. So stay tuned. Okay. So I think that was sort of my wrap up address in terms of something interesting. I don't think I'm going to talk about something interesting this time around. All I'm going to say is hope everyone had a great holidays. Hope everyone had a great time off, enjoyed with their family and their friends, and took some reflection on, and to be grateful for what we have, to be grateful to enjoy this hobby. I've always said this, it's a privilege to be able to enjoy this hobby, and I know I am very privileged in order to do this and enjoy this hobby. That said, thank you very much, and we'll leave it right there. Cheers. Thank you for listening to OverTime the podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode. You can find us on our Instagram at OverTime the podcast, at Kinda Average Watches, or flick me an email on overtimethepod@gmail.com. I appreciate your support and value your feedback. If you have any questions, suggestions, or topics that you would like the podcast to cover in the future, please hit us up. Until next time.